Imagine this: you're standing in the heart of a vast, ancient city. The sun is setting behind the towering structures of stone and marble, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets. The air is heavy with the scent of old books and incense. In the distance, you hear the murmurs of philosophers debating in the grand forums, the clash of swords from gladiators fighting for their lives, and the rhythmic chanting of the crowds in the Colosseum. This is Rome, the epicenter of power, culture, and ambition. But you're not just a bystander in this world. You are at the crossroads of destiny, holding a decision that will change everything, not just for you, but for the entire world. Suddenly, a man approaches you. He walks with the quiet, deliberate grace of someone who understands the weight of the world, yet carries it without arrogance. His face is not adorned with the typical trappings of power, nor does he boast the fierce energy of a conqueror. No, this man is different. His eyes hold something deeper, a reflection of someone who has mastered not just the empire, but the mind. He is Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, and yet, he is not what you expected. You see him not as a ruler from the history books, not as the man who commanded legions, but as someone who wrestles with the same existential doubts, fears, and uncertainties that you feel in your quietest moments. His most profound battles were not fought on the fields of war, but within the silent confines of his own mind. You are drawn into a conversation with him. His words are few but potent, like arrows aimed straight at the heart of human suffering. He speaks of the nature of existence, of fate, of inner peace, and of the paradox at the very core of human life. What, he asks, is the true meaning of power? Is it external, or is it something that comes from within? You find yourself caught in a paradox. Here is a man who had everything, unquestioned power, wealth, status, and yet, he was not consumed by it. He seemed to understand something the rest of the world did not. He lived by a set of principles that made him seemingly invincible to the tides of fortune and misfortune. And in his writings, you discover something even more unsettling: the way he lived and ruled was not a matter of luck, divine favor, or fortune. It was by design, a design rooted in something deeper than the fleeting, superficial concerns of the world. But the question gnaws at you: how could a man like Marcus Aurelius, who had everything to lose, be so detached from the very things that most people crave? And why does this same detachment, this mastery of the inner life, seem so foreign to us? Is it because we have been conditioned to chase after external validation, to mold our lives according to the expectations of society, only to find ourselves lost in the chase? Could it be that the key to enduring peace, to true power, is not to conquer the external world, but to conquer the inner world? And what if the deepest truths about life, about suffering, about joy, about meaning, are not to be found in the realms of success, fame, or wealth, but within ourselves? Here lies the greatest contradiction. For centuries, the world has placed its emphasis on what we can see, touch, and measure, on the external markers of success and greatness. But what if true greatness lies in the very thing that is invisible to the naked eye? What if the path to transcending our suffering, to understanding our purpose, lies not in winning battles or accumulating wealth, but in the cultivation of a quiet, unshakable inner strength? You look at Marcus Aurelius once more. His gaze is unwavering, as though he knows something you do not. He seems to carry the weight of the entire empire, yet there is a stillness to him that defies the chaos of the world around him. You feel the pull of his words, the magnetic force of his philosophy. And then, in the silence between you, a truth begins to form. A question that is both deeply unsettling and profoundly liberating: what if we have been chasing the wrong things all along? This question lingers in your mind as you step back into the world of noise and distraction. But it is not an easy question to shake. It stays with you, demanding an answer. It is the question that Marcus Aurelius himself grappled with. It is the question that shaped his life, and in many ways, shaped the future of the world. And so, we must ask, what was it about Marcus Aurelius that made him a man capable of changing the course of history, not by his conquests, but by his capacity to master the art of living? What hidden truths can we uncover from the way he lived his life, and how can these truths help us unlock a power more enduring than anything the world can offer? These questions are not just philosophical musings, they are existential dilemmas that demand a deeper exploration of the human condition. They force us to confront our own beliefs about life, power, and happiness. And in the pursuit of answers, we might just find a revelation that could change everything we thought we knew. As we embark on this journey, we will uncover the hidden forces that shaped Marcus Aurelius into the man he was. We will dive deep into the psychological and philosophical roots of his teachings, explore the unseen consequences of his choices, and discover the revolutionary shift in perspective that he offers to us all. But first, we must begin with the question, what is it that we are truly seeking? Let us pause here for a moment. The question you've just encountered, the one Marcus Aurelius asked so subtly, lifts the veil on a deeper, more unsettling problem that stretches across history and humanity itself. It is a question that challenges the very foundation of our lives: what are we truly seeking? Think about it. The world around us is a maelstrom of desires, expectations, and pressures. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into a race for validation, for success, for happiness. The messages are everywhere: you must achieve, you must conquer, you must prove yourself. And as we grow, these expectations only amplify. Society tells us that our worth is defined by what we do, by what we accumulate, by how much we are admired. This is the first hidden problem, the relentless, gnawing pressure to seek external validation. It creates a feedback loop that grows in intensity, conditioning us to measure our value through the world's eyes. But what happens when we don't stop to question this pursuit? What happens when we don't recognize that this chase, often ceaseless and empty, has become our sole focus? This is the psychological trap that Marcus Aurelius understood intimately. In fact, one of the central themes of his meditations is his warning against the delusion of external sources of meaning. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. With these words, he encapsulates a profound truth: the greatest source of our suffering, and our discontent, is our misunderstanding of where true power lies. We believe the external world defines us, but in truth, it is our internal world that shapes how we experience the world. The ancient world was not immune to these pressures. If anything, it mirrored the same forces we wrestle with today. The Roman Empire was one of the most powerful civilizations in history, but its rulers were often caught in a paradox. At the peak of their power, many found themselves haunted by the very things they once sought: wealth, fame, and control. Even emperors, supposedly the epitome of power, felt the crushing weight of the world's demands. Here, psychology offers us a chilling insight. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, warned about the dangers of the false self in his exploration of the human psyche. According to Jung, much of human suffering arises from our relentless pursuit of a self-image dictated by external forces, what we think we should be, rather than who we truly are. We create masks to fit societal expectations, only to find that the more we wear them, the more disconnected we become from our authentic selves. But even deeper still lies the existential dilemma at the core of this false self. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his Thus Spoke Zarathustra, declared that humans are fundamentally creatures of meaning. We are driven not just by basic needs but by a need to create meaning. Nietzsche understood that in a world where traditional sources of meaning, the divine, the moral law, were eroding, humans were left adrift. What, then, could give our lives purpose? Where could we ground our identity when all external sources of value seem so unstable? Here, the paradox deepens: if the external world is not the true source of meaning, then what is? What could possibly offer a stable foundation for our lives when the world itself seems to shift and crumble around us? The pursuit of wealth, success, status, none of these provide lasting fulfillment. And yet, we continue to chase them as though they are the ultimate goal. This brings us to the second part of the hidden problem, the illusion of control. In a society that values external power and material success, we are conditioned to believe that we must seize control of everything around us in order to feel secure. We obsess over managing outcomes, over dictating the flow of events. But Marcus Aurelius, like many great thinkers before him, recognized a disturbing truth: the more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more we plunge ourselves into chaos. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, famously said that humans are condemned to be free. This freedom, while empowering, is also terrifying. It places us in a position where we are solely responsible for creating meaning and order in our lives. The more we attempt to impose our will on the world, the more we find ourselves at odds with its inherent uncertainty. The striving for control becomes an endless, fruitless endeavor, leading to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and existential dread. Consider, for a moment, the emperor's role. Marcus Aurelius, as the ruler of the Roman Empire, would have been acutely aware of this tension. The empire was vast, and its problems were unrelenting. Wars, revolts, economic instability, every corner of his domain seemed to present a new crisis. And yet, in his meditations, he often wrote not about controlling the empire, but about controlling the self. He understood that, though he had power over many things, his true sovereignty lay in his ability to govern his thoughts, his reactions, and his state of mind. This leads us to a third, even more disturbing root of the problem: the fragility of the human condition itself. This is where the teachings of Viktor Frankl come into play. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, argued that the human search for meaning is not just a matter of external accomplishment, it is a matter of psychological survival. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl recounts how, even in the most horrific conditions, trapped in a concentration camp, he and others found meaning through their ability to choose their attitudes and responses to suffering. The ability to create meaning from within, even in the darkest of times, was the key to psychological survival. Frankl's philosophy is deeply intertwined with Marcus Aurelius's Stoic worldview. Both understood that the world would throw us into tumultuous seas. Loss, pain, betrayal, and death are inevitable, but the way we navigate these waters is what defines us. The emperor's wisdom lay not in avoiding suffering, but in accepting its inevitability and, in doing so, finding strength in surrendering to it. To fight the flow of the river only brings despair, to align oneself with it is to discover peace. In this light, the hidden problem we face becomes clearer. We are constantly seeking fulfillment in external sources: wealth, fame, power, yet these are fleeting, unreliable, and often lead to suffering. The true source of our peace, Marcus Aurelius believed, is not in the external world at all, but in how we approach life, how we engage with suffering, and how we understand our own mind. To search outside of ourselves for meaning is to chase a mirage, but to look within is to find a wellspring of strength that is unshakable. The crux of the problem, then, is this: we have built our identities around what we can control externally, and in doing so, we have neglected the very thing we can control most profoundly: our own minds. The search for external validation, the struggle for control, the attempts to escape suffering, all these things keep us bound in a cycle of disillusionment and frustration. But what if the key to breaking free lies in something Marcus Aurelius, Frankl, and many other great thinkers understood? What if the answers we are seeking are not out there in the world, but deep within us? The more we chase these external markers of success, the further we drift from true fulfillment. But in recognizing the truth, that the power to shape our experience lies within us, we find the seeds of liberation. This is the turning point. The very thing we have been conditioned to seek, the external validation, the control over life's chaotic forces, was never the source of our power. The power always lay in our ability to control our minds and our responses to the world. But how do we begin this transformation? How do we shift from a life focused on external control to one rooted in inner mastery? We will explore that question next. We've peeled back the surface, but now we must dive deeper. We've discussed the hidden problem, the unrelenting pressure to seek validation from external sources, the illusion of control, and the fragility of the human condition. But now, let us turn our attention to the most insidious aspect of this entire situation, the unseen consequences that ripple through every layer of our existence. What happens when we allow ourselves to be trapped by the illusion of external validation? What occurs when we endlessly chase success, wealth, fame, or approval, without pausing to examine the internal void that these pursuits may never fill? The consequences are far-reaching, far more than we realize at first glance. They shape not just our personal lives, but the very fabric of our society. Think of the cognitive biases that underlie this endless chase. One of the most powerful is what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to continue pursuing a course of action because of the time, energy, or resources we've already invested, even when that path no longer serves us. This plays out on both an individual and societal level. We invest our lives, our identities, in the pursuit of external achievements, only to find that each success brings a new emptiness, a new yearning for more. This can create an unbreakable loop. You might think that wealth will bring satisfaction, but it leads only to the desire for more wealth. You might think that fame will bring fulfillment, but fame can leave you exposed, isolated, and vulnerable. And yet, as human beings, we become addicted to the pursuit, unable to break free from this psychological trap. Then, consider how these cognitive biases affect our relationships. How many of us have invested countless hours, energy, and emotional labor into chasing a dream that was never truly ours to begin with, only to find that the relationships we cherish most are left behind in the dust? The quest for external approval, for validation, can distort our sense of connection. We begin to see people not as they truly are, but as vehicles for our own desires, as means to an end. Our interactions become transactional, rather than genuine. We stop seeing people for their intrinsic worth, and instead see them as tools for our personal gain. The result? Shallow, disconnected relationships that leave us feeling lonelier than before. At the societal level, these consequences play out even more starkly. In the modern world, where success is often measured by material wealth or status, we see a systemic cultivation of competitive individualism. Societies built on this principle prioritize personal achievement over communal well-being. This leads to a world where people are constantly trying to outdo one another, to prove themselves worthy of recognition. But beneath this competition lies a pervasive sense of disillusionment. How many people have reached the top of their careers only to feel a profound emptiness, a realization that the victory they so coveted was never truly satisfying? Take a moment to reflect on the broader implications. We live in a world where nearly every aspect of our lives is influenced by this external measuring stick. From childhood, we are trained to chase grades, trophies, accolades. This conditioning continues well into adulthood, where success is defined by the salary you earn, the house you live in, and the number of followers you accumulate. This external yardstick shapes how we view ourselves, how we view others, and how we define our worth. And yet, despite all the accolades and possessions we collect, there is always an underlying sense that something is missing. Marcus Aurelius, writing during the height of Roman power, understood this more deeply than most. His reflections were not merely philosophical musings, they were survival tactics for the soul. He lived in an era where external success was valued above all else, and yet, he saw that no amount of power or wealth could prevent the inevitable forces of death, suffering, and loss. Consider this, too: how many times have you heard someone say, "Once I get this, I'll be happy"? It could be a promotion, a relationship, a possession, or a recognition. It's a false promise we've been sold time and time again. And yet, when we finally reach that point, we often find that the satisfaction we sought eludes us, replaced instead by the next longing. It's like trying to fill a glass with water that continually drains from the bottom. The more we chase the external, the more we feel that something is missing. This is the unseen consequence of the modern condition, the endless chase of an external ideal that ultimately leads us further away from genuine fulfillment. And the result? Widespread feelings of dissatisfaction, anxiety, and existential disillusionment. But these consequences are not just individual. They extend to the collective. In a world driven by the pursuit of external validation, we have lost sight of the deeper, more meaningful connections that give life its true purpose. Communities, once built on shared values, solidarity, and mutual respect, have been replaced by networks of self-interest. This is where we encounter another silent tragedy, the erosion of community in favor of individual competition. The pursuit of external status breeds isolation, as we focus more on our personal success and less on the shared well-being of others. On a larger scale, the rapid pace of modern life, the drive for constant progress, the incessant push for more and more, has led us to a crisis of meaning. We have created societies where the individual is elevated above the collective, where material success is seen as the ultimate goal, and where the relentless quest for validation blinds us to the deeper, more meaningful aspects of existence. But this isn't just about society. It's also about the very fabric of our psychological well-being. Studies have shown that people who base their self-worth on external achievements or the approval of others are far more likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy. The constant need to measure up to an ever-changing standard creates a cycle of stress and emotional volatility. We look to the outside world for reassurance, but when it doesn't deliver, we fall into despair. And here, the most unsettling realization begins to take form: the external world is not just an unreliable source of meaning, it is actively undermining our ability to find peace. As long as we rely on external validation for our sense of worth, we will remain tethered to a system that will never truly satisfy us. Yet, in all this chaos, Marcus Aurelius offers us a glimmer of hope. His ability to transcend the weight of the world around him was not rooted in his external circumstances, but in his internal worldview. He did not seek control over the world, but control over his own thoughts, reactions, and attitudes. The secret to breaking free from the unseen consequences of this external chase lies in understanding this fundamental truth: only by turning inward can we find the power to shape our experience, regardless of what the world throws at us. But how do we begin to cultivate that inward strength? How do we escape the grip of external validation and reclaim our internal power? We will explore that next. Here lies the pivotal moment in our exploration. All the psychological traps, the societal pressures, the illusions we've discussed, they've built up to this point. It's here, right now, that the most crucial question emerges: how do we break free from this ceaseless, exhausting chase for external validation, this dangerous illusion of control, and the hollow pursuit of achievement? What does it truly mean to rebel against the forces that have shaped us? It is not, as we might imagine, a violent upheaval against the world. No, this rebellion starts much closer to home. It begins in the mind, in the quiet, inner spaces where we either accept or reject the values that have been imposed upon us. This rebellion is not against the world outside, but against the deeply ingrained patterns inside us that compel us to seek worth and meaning in the wrong places. The path of Marcus Aurelius, and indeed the path of all the great philosophers and thinkers before him, teaches us that the first step in breaking free is realizing that we are not bound by the narrative the world has written for us. We are not the sum of our possessions, our status, or our achievements. We are something deeper. We are beings of thought, reflection, and self-determination. This realization is the beginning of true freedom. Let's take a moment to reflect on this idea. For centuries, society has conditioned us to chase after things that are, by their very nature, fleeting. Fame, money, status, these are all impermanent. And yet, we chase them with an intensity that borders on obsession, believing that they will bring us happiness, peace, or security. But Marcus Aurelius knew better. His rebellion against this external validation was his acceptance of a different, far more radical truth: nothing outside of you can give you lasting peace. Instead of seeking power over others, Marcus sought to master himself. His Stoic philosophy was his rebellion. It was his way of saying, I will not be enslaved by external events. I will not let fortune dictate the state of my soul. The Stoic practice, in its simplest form, involves recognizing what is within our control and what is beyond it, and then acting accordingly. We cannot control the external world, the whims of fortune, the actions of others, the unpredictability of life. But we can control how we respond to these events. This insight opens the door to a radical shift in perspective. It is in this shift that we find the solution to the problem that has plagued humanity for centuries, the illusion of control and the belief that external success can provide meaning. The rebellion lies in recognizing that the only true freedom is the freedom of the mind, the ability to choose our responses, to decide our values, and to find meaning, not in the world's approval, but in our own convictions. This is where the teachings of Viktor Frankl become particularly powerful. In the face of unimaginable suffering, Frankl found his freedom not in controlling his external circumstances, he had none, but in controlling his attitude toward those circumstances. In his concentration camp, he was stripped of everything, his family, his home, his dignity. And yet, he found that no one could take his ability to choose how he responded to his suffering. He described this as the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This concept of inner freedom is at the heart of the Stoic philosophy Marcus Aurelius embraced. In his meditations, he constantly reflects on how to remain unaffected by external events, how to live according to virtue and reason, regardless of what happens around him. This was his rebellion, not a rebellion of violence or anger, but one of inner stillness, clarity, and purpose. Imagine, then, what it would be like to live this way. To no longer be a slave to the whims of external events, to no longer chase after goals dictated by society's ever-changing standards, but to live fully in alignment with your own inner principles. This shift is not easy, of course. It requires a deep reprogramming of the mind, an unlearning of habits that have been reinforced over the course of a lifetime. But the rewards are immeasurable: peace, clarity, and a profound sense of freedom that cannot be taken away by anyone or anything. But how, practically speaking, do we start this rebellion within ourselves? How do we begin to break free from the invisible chains that bind us? Practice detachment. The first step in this rebellion is to practice detachment from external outcomes. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the fleeting nature of life and the transient quality of all things. In a world where everything is temporary, wealth, success, even life itself, why invest your energy in things that can vanish at any moment? Detach yourself from the idea that your worth depends on external accomplishments. Instead, place your value in your inner character, your ability to choose virtue and reason in every moment. Focus on what you can control. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is beyond it. The external world is chaotic and unpredictable, but our inner world is ours to command. We cannot control the actions of others, nor can we always control our circumstances, but we can control our thoughts, our emotions, and our responses to what happens. The rebellion begins by choosing to focus on this internal domain and relinquishing the need to control the external. Embrace suffering as a teacher. The greatest challenge to any human being is suffering. We cannot avoid pain, loss, or hardship. These are inevitable aspects of life. But Marcus Aurelius teaches us that suffering is not something to be avoided at all costs. Instead, it is a tool for growth, a powerful teacher. Every challenge, every difficulty we face is an opportunity to strengthen our inner resolve and deepen our understanding of ourselves. Instead of running from suffering, we must learn to lean into it, to face it with courage and wisdom. Cultivate virtue, not achievement. The ultimate goal of Stoicism is the cultivation of virtue. The Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, are not simply ideals to be admired from a distance. They are practical guidelines for how to live a good life, regardless of the circumstances. Marcus Aurelius believed that the true measure of a person's worth is not in what they accumulate, but in how they live according to these virtues. The rebellion, then, is in aligning your life with your values, not with the fleeting desires that society imposes upon you. Live according to nature. Finally, the Stoics emphasize the importance of living in harmony with nature. This means understanding that we are part of a larger whole, that life is full of cycles, and that we are not separate from the world around us. Living according to nature is about accepting the ebb and flow of life, finding peace in the natural rhythms, and accepting that, like all things, we too will eventually fade. Each of these steps is a form of rebellion, against the conditioning that has shaped us, against the societal pressures that demand conformity, and against the illusion that happiness can be found outside of ourselves. This rebellion is not about fighting the world, but about reclaiming control over our inner lives. And as we do so, we begin to experience a profound shift. The world may still throw its challenges our way, but we are no longer victims of its whims. We are no longer slaves to external validation. Instead, we are free to create meaning from within, to live according to our own principles, and to find peace no matter what happens. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. The rebellion begins here, within you. It is the most powerful revolution you can ever undertake. But it requires a commitment, one that transcends the external and anchors you firmly in the internal. Now we arrive at the final, most profound realization, one that has the power to shatter everything you've ever thought you knew. We've ventured into the shadows of external validation, explored the hidden psychological forces at play, and even discussed the rebellion against the external world and the awakening of internal power. But there's one truth that lies beneath it all, a truth so powerful that once it's grasped, it rewrites everything, every struggle, every moment of suffering, every success you've ever chased. It's time to confront the final, most radical shift of all. What if everything you've been taught about success, happiness, and meaning is wrong? What if the key to a truly fulfilled life lies not in the pursuit of external accomplishments, but in the acceptance of a reality far more profound, far more unshakable, than anything the world could offer? What if true freedom, the kind that transcends all suffering, lies in surrendering, not to the world outside, but to the deeper truths of existence itself? This is where Marcus Aurelius' philosophy delivers its most powerful blow to conventional wisdom. The realization he reached, as he sat quietly in the darkness of his imperial palace, is not one of fleeting triumph, but of timeless truth. The ultimate realization is not that we are in control of the world, nor that we can bend life to our will. The most profound truth is this: everything external is temporary, only the present moment is real. The pursuit of external validation, wealth, fame, power, these are all constructs of the human mind, illusions that we allow ourselves to chase in a futile attempt to fill an internal void. But the deeper truth that Marcus Aurelius grasped was that true peace, true fulfillment, lies not in the accumulation of things, but in the acceptance of what is, right now, as it is. This is the key to breaking free from the ceaseless chase, to finding peace even in the midst of chaos. It's hard to overstate the importance of this realization. For most of us, the past and future loom large, our regrets, our hopes, our anxieties. We spend our lives either clinging to memories or projecting ourselves into future possibilities. But the past is gone, and the future is unknowable. The only reality we have, the only moment that truly exists, is now. The Stoics, especially Marcus, understood this deeply. They lived with the conviction that the present moment is the only one that truly matters, because it is the only one that we can ever fully experience. This moment, this breath, this thought, this feeling, is all we truly possess. And yet, how many of us spend our days lost in thoughts about what could have been, or what might be? We squander the richness of the present, distracted by a never-ending search for external approval or success. The most powerful realization, then, is this: the present is enough. In it lies everything we need to find meaning, peace, and fulfillment. This idea is at the heart of what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. To reclaim your inner power, to break free from the grip of external validation, is to embrace the profound simplicity of the present moment. And when you do this, you are liberated. The world no longer controls your happiness or sense of worth because you are anchored in something far deeper, the understanding that who you are is not dependent on anything outside of you. The shift is nothing short of revolutionary. It's a complete paradigm change. Imagine waking up every day without the weight of expectations, without the pressure to constantly achieve, to compete, to measure up. Imagine living fully in each moment, appreciating the beauty of life as it unfolds, without the need for external validation. The moment you understand this, when you truly accept the power of the present, you will realize that you are no longer bound by the world's standards. The weight of the world will begin to fall away, and in its place will be a profound peace, a sense of clarity and control that comes not from trying to force life into your desires, but from surrendering to it as it is. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition, or ignoring the practicalities of life. It means living with a deep sense of peace, where your sense of worth comes from within, not from the ever-shifting tides of external events. The final realization, then, is this: true freedom is not in the pursuit of what is outside of you, but in the mastery of what lies within. The external world will continue to be as unpredictable, as fleeting, as transient as it always has been. But your inner world, the way you respond to it, the peace you cultivate within yourself, that is yours to command. And in that, you find a freedom unlike any other. As we've seen through the life of Marcus Aurelius, this was his ultimate truth. His reign as emperor, the power he wielded, was all temporary. The empire, his wealth, his influence, they were all destined to fade. But his inner peace, his understanding of the present moment, that remained unshaken, untouchable. In his meditations, he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the essence of who we are is shaped by how we think, how we perceive the world, and how we respond to it. When you fully internalize this, you realize that everything external is merely a passing moment in the vast tapestry of existence. The accolades, the failures, the moments of glory and despair, they are not who you are. You are the observer, the consciousness that experiences all things but is not defined by them. And it is this recognition that holds the key to lasting peace, freedom, and fulfillment. The most profound and freeing realization is that, despite the chaos of life, you are not its victim. You are its master. Your mind is your domain. How you experience the world is yours to choose. You don't need the world's approval, because you already have your own. You don't need external achievements to define your worth, because you are already enough. The world's approval is transient, but the approval you give yourself is eternal. And so, you must ask yourself, what if I stopped chasing after external validation? What if I stopped measuring my worth against the shifting standards of the world? What if I embraced the power of the present moment, the power of my own thoughts, and the freedom of my own inner world? This is the essence of Marcus Aurelius' wisdom. This is the ultimate truth he imparted not just to himself, but to all of us. It is a truth that frees us from the tyranny of the external, a truth that allows us to live in peace, to live with purpose, and to live fully, right here, right now. The question is, are you ready to embrace it?